Yatora from Blue Period embodies the painful yet beautiful journey of finding your purpose when you're lost in life. Because this story isn't just about discovering what is meant to do, but about the struggles that come with confronting who he really is. Throughout the story, Yatora felt the need to comply with what people expected him to be, simply fitting in and ensuring he didn't stand out more than he needed to, and that's what kept him away from figuring out what he wanted to be. And just like Yatora, we tend to lean towards things that feel safe, things that others want us to be. Be a good student, find a good office job, and meet your partner. But is that what you really want? Or are others just projecting their dreams to you? That's why Yatora decided to let go of all the expectations and stop living for others, rather to live for himself. But what exactly were the things that stopped Yatora from realizing who he wanted to be? Yatora is known as a delinquent who excels academically, a student who seems like a role model, but behind that facade is a guy who doesn't know what to do with himself. He spends his time with friends smoking, staying up all night, and slacking off, though he makes up for it by studying. To him, what matters most is keeping up appearances, keeping his true self hidden, because what would people think if they found out that Yatora is nothing more than his grades and social status? This is something we see a lot in real life. Most of the time, we simply go with the flow of the current trends, keeping up with everyone, posting pictures online, just so we can show everyone we have an interesting life. But for many of us, we truly don't have anything we can call our own. Maybe because we're too afraid to try, afraid of being different, afraid of being laughed at. That's what Yatora feared. He thought that the people around him, especially his friends, would judge him for trying to be different. That's why he lived by others' definition of normal, fitting in and seeking approval from people he barely knew. That was his purpose, and he planned to keep living that way. That's until he had a fateful encounter. As part of his assignment, Yatora was tasked with drawing a scenery he liked the most. At first, he couldn't see the appeal of making art, saying that artists are just a bunch of weirdos who like to draw. But his understanding of art was challenged when he came across a painting by one of his seniors, Mori, who painted an angel on a large canvas. It was the first work of art that stirred something within him, not just because of its beauty, but the emotions it's trying to show. He praised Mori for it, saying how talented she is to create such a thing. But this is what most people get it wrong about talent. People think that famous figures of today woke up one day with an inherent ability to create masterpieces. They all see the end product and say, wow, I wish I had their talent. But what they don't see is the process behind every work, the mental breakdowns and the failures that went into each piece. So when Yatora told Mori that she was talented, she couldn't help but feel that all the hard work she put into improving was invalidated. But that also means that anyone can reach the level of a quote-unquote talented person if they try hard enough. Yatora realized this, so when he was wandering the morning scenery of Shibuya one day, he decided that's what he wanted to paint for his assignment. The endless feeling of blue that covered the city. And that's when Yatora awakened to his joy for art. Yatora had found what he truly wanted to do in life, to draw and create works of art. Though he wasn't good at first, he kept trying, doing everything he could to improve, joining the art club and enrolling at a cram school for artists, so he could improve enough to pass the entrance exam for the only affordable art university. But even then, thoughts of self-doubt crept in, believing that he was painfully ordinary to be an artist. He couldn't help but compare himself to skilled individuals at cram school, especially Yutasuke, who he saw as a genius in art. But Ryuji, his schoolmate, reminded him that he was looking too far ahead, failing to see the progress he had already made. Because in just a short amount of time, he was already able to draw decently. This reassurance helped, but only temporarily. As more time passed, his teacher at the cram school noticed that Yatora was making art for the sake of getting good results. He was too focused on worrying whether his art was good enough, that it's all that mattered to him. And that's why his art felt too artificial, an imitation of others' paintings. He did not have faith in himself and in his own art. He lacked confidence. He couldn't paint like Yutasuke did, and that's why he made up for his lack of skill with hard work. But this is a trap most of us fall into in any aspect of our lives. We feel like we have to make up for our own shortcomings by forcing to work hard. But that's almost robotic, devoid of purpose, because now you're only doing it to prove something to others rather than doing it for yourself. That's why Yatora's art suffered, but deep down, his real reason for not fully trying was his fear of vulnerability. If he made something that truly came from his heart and it gets rejected, then it would feel like he himself is rejected. It's one of the reasons why we never try, to find out that even if you give it your all, you're still nowhere near where you want to be. But Yatora, even with this fear, had a revelation of what it really means to make art, of how his work is deeply tied to who he is. While Yatora was preparing for his entrance exam, he accompanied Ryuji when he ran away from home, and they spent the night together at an inn. The next day, Ryuji unexpectedly challenged them both to draw themselves naked, claiming that doing so would help them discover things about themselves they hadn't realized before. At first, this seemed unnecessary, but as Yatora looked at himself in the mirror and took in every detail, he realized his perception of himself had changed. His body, like a lumpy eraser, felt fragile. Both literally and metaphorically, he realized that he had spent every day covering himself with clothes, hiding not just from others, but from himself, afraid to confront his insecurities. That's when it hit him. How could he be true to his art if he couldn't even be true to himself? How could he wear armor to avoid the parts of himself he despised? He needed to strip away his armor and pour his authentic self into his work. And that's what he did in the first exam. As the theme assigned to them was a self-portrait, he drew his face, distorted and broken by lines cutting through, like a broken mirror, representing the many parts he didn't like about himself. And on his second exam, the theme they were given was a nude model. It was up to them to paint the model as they see fit. Although he struggled at first, he was able to incorporate everything he had learned up to this point. But he had one last realization amidst painting his work. Being naked doesn't equate to simply being your true self. It's allowing people to see all the ugly parts of yourself, accepting them, owning them, and building your strength around them. Because at the end of the day, that messy and complicated part of you is still you. So he picked up his brush and painted exactly that. A person laid bare, surrounded by people in clothing represented in black. Through this, he was no longer afraid. He now knows that this is his purpose, to convey emotions and express the truest version of himself through his art. Yatora found himself on his journey. But what about you? Who do you really want to be? Let's forget about money, expectations, burdens, and everything else that might hold you back for a moment. Is there something you've always wanted to be? Or did you lose sight of your dreams while trying to make it this far? Maybe it's because we were too focused on surviving that we forgot what we truly wanted to be. But is that really how you want to live your life? Just surviving? My professor once told me we weren't born just to suffer, but to take every opportunity in life to make it as enjoyable as possible, even if the path towards it is messy. I guess what he was trying to say is, suffering isn't purpose. Getting by in life isn't purpose. So do whatever it takes to find what gives your life meaning. Seize it and take your journey one step at a time. So go. Draw the life you always wanted.